Okay, let's go to Southeast Asia. Muhammed Yunus has now been sworn in as head of Bangladesh's interim government, vowing to uphold, support, and protect the constitution. Now, the decision to name Professor Yunus as chief advisor of the interim government followed a meeting between President Mohammed Shashauddin, military leaders, and student leaders, and it came just days after Sheikh Hasina, the woman who ruled Bangladesh with an iron fist for 15 years, fled the country to India. So, what challenges will he face in the coming months? And will he be able to bring lasting calm? Let's speak to Dr. Sohaila Nazneen, a senior fellow at the Institute of Development Studies, specializing in South Asia and Bangladesh. Dr. Nazneen, hello to you.
Hello, Henry. Good to be on the show.
No, it's great. I mean, I think we should be talking about Bangladesh more often, not just in this program, but more broadly for historic and current reasons. But what does it mean for the people of Bangladesh that a man who has been the darling of the West, a Nobel Prize winner, has been invited to lead the government following the departure of somebody, a woman who had ruled Bangladesh with an iron fist for a decade and a half?
Well, for Bangladesh, this means a momentous change. Some have called it that this is our second independence. As you know, and as you said, Hasina has ruled the country for 15 years. And increasingly, we saw freedom of expression being curtailed, undermining of different institutions, particularly autonomy of the civil administration, the police, the judiciary, and corruption. So people have a lot of expectations from this interim government. Of course, the first task, as you mentioned, would be in terms of restoring calm and law and order. There have been reports about looting, also reprisal attacks on police station, because police force was used to repress the protesters, and it had been quite bloody and violent. So right now, a lot of the police stations are unmanned, emergency services are overwhelmed. So the force has been called back to join the different stations and at their workplace. In some places, the military is guarding the police station. In some places, the community has gotten together to resist attacks, particularly on religious minorities. So there is a huge expectation in terms of that calm would be restored, and there have been calls for that. There are also challenges in terms of institutional reforms. So the political parties are thinking about elections, but the general public has said that they have previously seen that the reforms have focused on elections and that haven't gone far enough in terms of ensuring that different institutions functioned autonomously and that they were not politicized. So that will need to be addressed, and that is a huge challenge.
Yeah, and that was one of the key issues driving people onto the street, particularly during July, and that forced Sheikh Hasina to leave the country on Monday. But, I mean, the contrast with Muhammad Yunus, Professor Yunus, could not be greater. I mean, he's known as the banker to the poorest of the poor, a pioneer in microfinance. What do you think his priority should be for as long as he's in post? Because he's an older person. He obviously has great ideals. He's helped a lot of poor people. But what's he going to be like as a governor, as a prime minister, essentially?
I think, well, he is a charismatic person, but also he has a lot of personal capital in terms of the legitimacy and the respect in the way that he's held by different groups of the society. So that is important if you're trying to build consensus and reach to different groups, right? But apart from that, he experimented with a very novel idea when he started the microfinance movement. Nobody had thought that would succeed. He built an institution that functions nationally. And of course, he has a lot of capital among the international community. So all of those would come in service in the way of governing a country. He's being held by the interim government advisors. Some of them are quite savvy. Some of them are young. We know that there are 2 student coordinators in the government. But it's also important to have voices heard. So we are hopeful.
Yeah, you're hopeful. How long will the honeymoon last? I mean, Professor Yunus himself said the people are excited, but we have to have discipline. Question is, what does that mean? And how long will they give him?
Oh, well, we will have to be patient.
Hmm.
The thing is that he will have to take some decisions that will not be popular, and he will have to reach across the divide. Sentiments are high right now, emotions are also high, but it's also about taking critical and pragmatic steps, both in the short run and sort of in the medium term and long run. So it will be a challenging task.
Yeah, I mean, so is he going to have to go as far as, say, cutting subsidies? Is he going to have to reform the public sector, try to increase domestic finance mobilization, as in increase the tax base? Because they're the kinds of things that his friends at the World Bank and IMF want to see. You see it in Nigeria and other countries. You see it in Kenya. And the people on the streets don't like it.
Well, people have said that they want him to control inflationary pressure. The cost of living crisis and post-pandemic impact on the economy has been quite dire. So that is one of the demands, and that will have to be looked into. It is about food prices and getting food prices down. But at the same time, we know that there are problems in terms of there is a liquidity crisis, and Bangladesh Bank has put a cap on how much you can withdraw from the bank. So there are large economic challenges that are coming. We have also received a huge package from the IMF, so that has conditionalities. So it's not an easy place to be in, and that's why I was saying that the decisions are not going to be easy.
Indeed. Dr. Sohaila Nazneen, Senior Fellow at the Institute of Development Studies, specialising South Asia and Bangladesh. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on Times Radio.